Good afternoon, friends. And we warmly welcome you once again to our monthly investment club meeting. We treat this meeting like this is one family. We have a simple mission as a collective. Our mission is to help one another to have and gain the knowledge of how to make money, manage money, and grow money. There's a popular saying that goes that money doesn't grow on trees, but yet you can still grow money. This edition, we are expecting a special guest, the author of Happy Ever After, the book that we're currently reading, which is Financial Freedom is Not a Fairy Tale. He's supposed to be joining us from faraway Singapore, where he lives, and that's where he wrote the book from. However, at this point in time, we're still expecting him to join us on the call. But as we are always on time, and we keep to time when we want to set up our meetings. So that's the reason why we're just going to have some preliminary chats and hoping that he joins us at the nick of on time, and we can continue this conversation. Before this day, we had a preliminary chat with him 2 days ago. And Chubi, what was some of the things that you found exciting about the story that led to this book from that conversation we had?
All right, thank you, Jesse. Good afternoon, everyone. I really hope he's able to join us sometime during this call, because I think a lot of all these things will be best heard from him. But when we had a chat with him a couple of days ago, the most interesting thing that stood out to me was how he wrote the book. So he said he had a conversation with his daughter, and his daughter was asking him what's the least amount somebody, an average person, would need to retire. And he found out that he didn't really have that figure. And then he did a bunch of all these research, and he basically came up with the book. And the book, so in his words, he said he wrote the book just for her, because I remember complimenting him on how easy it was, and the fact that he's a British citizen who lives in Singapore, but he writes a book about finance that I can relate to, being a young man from Nigeria. And it's it wasn't really written in such a way that it kind of like puts you in like a corner. It's something where you can read and be like, yes, I understand that, regardless of where you're from, regardless of what economy you operate in. So I think that was just interesting, the fact that he approached writing that book from the perspective of, okay, I want to be able to I want to be able to explain these things to like a young girl. And that makes it so simple, that makes it so easy to digest, and just you're able to just pick up the concept and understand exactly what he's talking about. So that was the most interesting thing to me.
Yes. And while I also found that very interesting, another thing that struck me about the book is the fact that before this book, I'd already read 15 personal finance books. Each of these 15 books are telling the story of how to attain financial freedom from different angles. However, picking up his book, it was not as if it was rehashing what I've read in all those other books, but it told the story in a very, very simple terms, breaking it down. And, there are times when, like you said, you read some books, foreign books, and you can't relate. You feel, well, this is possible for them because the credit system is good. If you are broke, you can go on credit card. If you want to buy a house, you can get a down payment of 20%. But here I am in Nigeria, where almost everything doesn't seem to work. Inflation is double digit, blah, blah, blah. But this book is different from that. Everyone can relate. I mean, there was a place where he said in the book that when it comes to, not just in simple terms, but relatable terms. Thank you, Chioma. That is true. He also went ahead and said something like, people used to think it's the rich people who can save and invest. Then he broke it down that in one's lifetime, if one, the title of the book is Happy Ever After, Financial Freedom is Not a Fairy Tale by $7 Millionaire. You can get it on Amazon, and then they're making plans to send it to Nigeria as well. It's the book we're reading in the Rise Telegram community, and we're already in chapter 6. Now, let's look at it this way. I can say for a fact, I've been in the UK for the past 4 months, that I have met a lot of people who live here, despite that they live in the mid of prosperity, they still have money problems. Does that not shock you? I mean, I was somewhere and someone was saying she's looking forward to a payday because she's broke. She doesn't have any money. So the habits, like the title of this session that we're supposed to have, it says that simple habits that will lead you to financial freedom. And those habits can be useful whether you're living in Meduguri, Kaduna, Lagos, Ekiti, Aba, Benin City, anywhere in the world you are living, it can be applicable. Very, very simple rules. So now, I want to put you on the spot, Chubi. So far, which of the habits or some nuggets in this book have you found to be so simple, yet very important to attaining financial freedom? It might just be one or two.
No, great question. Thank you for that. So the one that sticks to my mind really is the fact, is the habit of paying yourself first, right? So I think when you start reading finance books and start reading text where the authors are teaching you how to think about money, one of the first things you always hear is that you should pay yourself first. So meaning when you get your income, there's supposed to be a set percentage of your income that you take out for your investments and your savings. You do that before you even start making any expenses. Now, you would think it's so easy, but you'd be surprised how many people it goes over their heads, right? So it was just really that switch of that mentality where investments, your savings and your investments are not something that's supposed to come after you've made all your expenses, and you're thinking, okay, what's left? Okay, now let me save this, let me invest this. It's supposed to work the other way around, actually. You're actually supposed to pay yourself first. Why? Because you have financial plans, you have goals. Paying yourself is like paying your future self, right? So it's once your income is the reward for all the value, all the work that you have done. And once that comes in, you should at least 20% of that, right? So you can start as low as 10%, and then as you become more disciplined, you increase that. But you should always just have that percentage that you pull out for your savings and your investments. So I think that's one habit that I think is very, very key. Is very, very key, because once you start doing that, you find that you start building a lot of habits around that, right? So it brings a whole lot of discipline. It brings a whole lot of like emotional balance to the way you think about your money. So I think that would be one. Pay yourself first.
That's incredible. Thank you. Now, there's another one that comes to mind. When we want to start planning to add to that journey when we attain financial freedom, we begin to imagine that it's not possible, given how little the amount of money we earn is. But in the acronym mission that is shared, there is the one of compounding that enhances investing. I thought about it this way. Good habits compound, bad habit compounds. Okay, so we complain that we don't have money. But if someone subscribes to, just for example, maybe music distribution on their phone every month, let's say it's 5,000 naira in a month. That person doesn't earn so much, but the person believes that, well, he still needs to enjoy himself. So 5,000 a month in 15 years. I want to ask members of our guests, please don't share people's link to people's book in this group. This book is for sale and is someone's work of art. You should not share it, please. You should purchase the book because someone has spent his sweat and time to write the book. On your journey to financial freedom, one of the things we should learn to do is everyone needs to be rewarded for what they have done. Please, thank you. Now, so the simple calculation of trying to check, let me do the calculation. Let's say I'm spending 2,500 for my music every month, but I'm not a wealthy person, but I can afford 2,500 every month. And I'm spending that 2,500 every month. And I spend it for, say, 15 years. $2,500 in 15 years. So it means that I would have spent 488,000 naira. Yes, okay, that's about 450,000 naira. Thank you. But if I invest this money, like in the Rise stock plan, that returns just 10%, or let's say 10%, let's be conservative. In that 15-month period, can any of our guests joining us on this program tell us how much that money would be in that 15 years? That money would be 1 million naira. That is, it would have earned an interest of 554,000. The money would have doubled with an extra. So that's the power of compounding. So this is a simple habit that if we apply this habit on our journey to financial freedom, even before we start making a lot of money, if we just look for one item in our life that we can cut and put that money aside, automate it, and become more careful and deliberate about how we spend and not careless, we can attain financial freedom. Not so?
No, that's totally correct. So you speak to the S part of the acronym for spending. Uh, so yes, spending is also one aspect that we also have to be very careful of, right? Because the amount of money that you save and invest is actually the difference between what you're making and what you're actually spending. So that's where budgeting comes in, right? So you need to know where exactly your money is going. You need to know the things that you're actually spending money on, because remember, the goal really is to make sure that we keep income as high as conveniently possible, and then try to keep expenses down to a reasonable minimum, so that difference goes to your savings and your savings and your investments. So what that means is that if you make more money, that allows you to also have more money to be able to commit to your savings and investments, which reduces the time that you're able to reach your financial goals. Same thing, and it's so a lot of times it's harder to increase your income than it is to actually reduce your expenses. The reason is because of what Jesse just mentioned. If you closely look at your spending, I mean, this is like all of us. If we closely look at our spending, um, 8 times out of 10, we'll find that there's certain items, there's certain goods, services that we spend money on a lot often. And if we actually sit back and think, is this really necessary? Is this something that maybe I could do without and see if my life will still be, great? Is this something that like I can have like a cheaper alternative? So, for example, like a gym subscription. Um, I mean, it's good to like stay fit, but if you really think about it, you'll be able to find cheaper ways to still
Like
stay
walking to
fit.
work,
That could be part of it. That could be. I
playing
mean,
football.
yes, yes. I told you I broke my leg earlier today, so yes, that could be part of it. And or just downloading an app. I have a gym app on my phone, where it gives me like a whole 28-day routine, and I'm able to just, every day I have like a routine, and it's just body weight. So I don't even need any apparatus. I don't need any. It's use your body weight, right? So um that's just a cheaper way to like, substitute for a gym subscription where I'll probably be paying maybe 15,000 naira every month, maybe 10K every month, which will compound. So yes, spending is always just a very, very important uh, element of our personal finances, that we should make sure we have a control of, and that works by having a budget. You need to know exactly where your money is going. What are the things that like I spend my money on? So if I take out my needs, so my basic expenses, the expenses that I need to make for my life to keep on going on, you're talking about transport, you're talking about your rent, you're talking about utility bills, you're talking about internet, and all of that stuff. When I take that out, the expenses that I'm making on top of that, can I cut back on some of them? Can I find cheaper ways? Just so I can have more money to invest towards my long-term goals. So yes, spending is always a very, very important thing. It goes over a lot of people's heads as well.
I just did the calculation for you. If you don't use your 15,000 naira for gym, if you save it over the course of 15 years, it will give you about 6 million naira at the end of that 15 years, compounding. The interest you would have gained is about 3.3 million. So these are very simple habits. So we don't necessarily need to wait until we are earning huge amount of money. Some maybe like he said in this book, if you budget, you try to get discount. Like some people will go to a far place and maybe shop 2 times in a month or once in a month, where they will buy yam cheaper, they will buy rice cheaper, they buy beans cheaper, they buy it once. Some people will decide to go with home cooked meals and have a lunch bag and pack their meals to work. Those are very simple things that it doesn't mean you shouldn't enjoy yourself, you know? So something else in that mission acronym for achieving financial freedom that is shared in the book.
Sorry, Jesse, I'll be back with you in a bit.
All right. Another thing is shared in the book is what money really means. To many of us, we think of money as something that will make us happy, that the more money we have, the happier we will be. But sometimes it's an illusion. What money is a tool that you can use to buy yourself time. For instance, if you have money, like some huge amount of money, you can get someone to do your laundry. So when someone is doing your laundry, it will save you time, and you can use that time maybe to watch TV, to play with your kids, or to sleep. What if you get more money and you hire a driver? You get the time to sit in traffic and sit behind the car and maybe play a game or try to finish your email. So money is measured in how much time we can have. So maybe if we can change our perception about money, that when we save an amount of our income by using it to accumulate assets that appreciates, it is going to buy us more time in the future when probably we are older or we are no longer in active employment. And then we would have had the money compound, and then we can draw from that money and not have to work. And then we can have freedom of time to pursue whatever we want to pursue, maybe like traveling the world, playing with your kids, or just doing something that is very, very risky. By risky, I mean something you can fail in. Now, even if you fail in it, you know, you don't have to worry about where to get money because you've already invested over time. So these very simple habits can really help us to be on the path to financial freedom. But there's another question I want to ask. Given the way we've said this book is very relatable to people all over the world and even in Nigeria, there is scam all over the place. People know people want to make money. And not only do they want to make money, they want to make the money, they want to make it fast. And this has led so many people to fall victim of money doublers or scammers. Now, this is a bit of diversion from the book. How can we identify investments that are scams? Chubi.
Yeah, okay, so to answer that question, I think I want to start from the perspective of risk and reward, right? So uh risk is basically um the probability of you not getting your desired results. So you invest and you expect your money to grow, but the if the probability of your investment is actually not growing and declining, uh, if that probability is high, then that's a high risk, investment, a high risk asset, right? So we just need to understand that, like, if you want high rewards, you're going to have to take high risk, right? And if you want moderate rewards or moderate returns, then you don't need to take as much risk. So as far as like scams and schemes go, uh you need to ask yourself, if somebody is telling you, they're going to give you 50% return on your money, 75% return on your money in 3 days, in 1 week, in 1 month, and they tell you that, oh, your capital is safe, you get your money and you get your returns, that means you're getting a high level of return and you're not taking risk. It doesn't make any sense. If you're going to put money somewhere where it's actually going to give you 50%, double that money in in a short period of time, that means you're going to take a high level of risk. Those are the kind of numbers that you do from, like, starting like a business, and you can imagine how risky it is to do that. So really, to dodge scams, you just need to look at it. You just
I am so sorry this is so late.
uh,
I had to get out of the house for a while, and I couldn't get back in time on a bit of an emergency, and so I just dashed back, and I'm covered in sweat. I'm so sorry about that.
It's all right. So you're welcome. So we were just sharing with our community things we have enjoyed in your book and how relatable your book is, despite that you're of the British origin, you live in Singapore, but we're reading the book in Nigeria and we can relate, even though we don't have access to credit and we don't have access to mortgage the same way it is in some countries, but we're still enjoying it. That's what we've just been discussing. And just before you came, Chubi, my colleague, was just, we're just asking about how to identify investments that are scam, but that's just to help, because there are lots of investment around us here in Nigeria that are scams. when people want to double their money very fast and they want 50% per month or 50% per year, and they are not waiting patiently for compounding, it makes them fall victim to scam.
Yeah.
And Chubi was just saying that the more the risk, the more return you will get. And you can't be expecting huge return without being exposed to huge risk. But I'll leave that for a later time for you to comment. And so let's meet you. Let's meet you. Can you introduce yourself to our community?
Sure, I'd love to. And thank you so much for organizing this. And again, I'm going to apologize one more time because it's so terrible for me to be that late. And now so sweaty on your screen. So thank you for this. Who am I? My name is Michael Gilmore. I use the name $7 Millionaire when I write about financial literacy. And one of the reasons I do that is because I think I do want people to relate. And, you know, I think one of the most important things about finance is that we feel that we're being talked to by someone like ourselves. And, you know, I'm a very specific person. Jesse, you're a very specific person. Julie, you're a very specific person. And if we talk to people like ourselves, they relate. But the things that I wanted to talk about in this book and some of the other books I've written are not the things I specialize in. So I've been working in finance for 25 years, yeah, almost. I used to be a specialist in investment banking and doing IPOs. I've IPO'd more than $30 billion of deals over like a 15-year period. I now manage money. I'm a fund manager, but a very, very specialized niche of what I do. And so all of these things come together. But if I go back 25 years to when I first came into finance, that's actually what drives the way I think about the work I do today with financial empowerment. Because when I came into finance, I was like everyone on this call who wants to get in and doesn't know what they're doing or feels uncertain about what they're thinking. And I had to I got a job in finance and I had to learn over a weekend. Like I had to show up on a trading floor like 3 or 4 days later. And I got every book I could find because this was before the internet. So we only had books. And I'm going through every book I could find and just reading through the material. And when I got to work, and I was working like maybe 2 or 3 weeks, I had these sort of few realizations. One was it's not nearly as scary or as complicated as I thought. 2, it's way more powerful than I ever thought. And that gave way to a third reaction, which I was just angry. I was angry. I'd never been taught this. You know, I spent 15, 16 years in education, like we all do in school. Then if we go into college, it's a few more years. No one bothered to teach me about money. And I said to myself, when at that stage, 25 years ago, I said, at some point, I'm going to try and put this right. I'm going to talk to anyone I can and give anyone I can some kind of help or any advice or any thoughts that can make them make that, to me, what is the most important step, the first step. Because when you know nothing and you're nervous and you're scared and you don't know what to do, it's very hard to make that first step. And I think that first step is the important one, but it's very important to make it carefully, safely, and in the right way to make that progress into those steps. And so that's where, you know, because I think you're raising a very good point. Scams they're very prevalent everywhere in the world, and they particularly attack people who are nervous and uncertain, and also unskilled at investing. Because if you're not skilled at investing, you might hear someone say to you, I'll give you a 30% guaranteed return. Now, if someone says that to me, I'm like, that's not possible. It just can't be done. And if you look at just someone like Warren Buffett, the guy's averaged 21% returns his entire life, never guaranteed. His 21% returns. Those are good returns. If you want to make good returns every year, 10% is actually okay, right? This is actually the sensible thing. But if you're new, if you don't know that, someone says to you, guaranteed, you're like, guaranteed, that sounds good. 25, 30% returns, that sounds better than 10. You don't know that that's impossible. And so this is where I feel like it's so important, people like yourself, people like me, we all introduce people slowly, gradually, and make them feel more comfortable and more confident of making safe, simple steps into managing their money well. Because for me, it's the simplest way of changing the world, right? We all have money. We don't always have enough, but sometimes we have a bit more than we need. And if we can save that and invest it, we can change our own lives. and the world can be more efficient as a result. So that's me. That's a really rambling version, but you're not getting the normal calm me because I had to run back really fast because it was so late.
It's all right. Thank you. So you've delved into the reason why you wrote the book briefly, but there was this story you told us about how the story was conceived to help teach your daughter. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah. So you talk about that, how I came. So I was talking. So the reason was I looked at my daughter. This is 5 years ago. She was 17 years old at the time. And I realized I hadn't really taught her much about money. And I'd never bothered. I thought this whole thing with pocket money and stuff felt like to me, it felt a little bit forced, not very natural. So we'd never really got into those sort of conversations about money. So by the time she was 17, I realized she was going to go off to university and I may not see her again. She could go to university, she could stay over the summers, she would be gone. I might only have like a few weeks a year, maybe a couple of months a year to see her and talk to her. And I realized there's no time to kind of squeeze in money education into that time. And I realized she knew nothing, like nothing at all. So I thought to myself, okay, what can I do? I can either sit with her and lecture her every single weekend and, ruin every weekend we have left together before she goes off to college, or I can get it all down into a book. She can read the book. And one of the things I think was very important with her reading the book is she was the editor. She was the first editor of the book. And so she would come back to me and she'd say, well, not deliberately editor. She'd be editor and say, I didn't understand this, or this was boring, or I got lost here. There's too many numbers. And because I was writing for her and I needed her to understand, it made me someone who works in finance, and sometimes I throw numbers around way too casually and it puts people off. She was able to be that reader for me that told me too hard, too complicated, too boring, too many numbers. And so I wrote it for her. And as a result, she helped me write it for everyone like her. And so to this day, so she's now working. She saves half of her salary every month. And invests it. She doesn't know what she invests it in. She looks at different ETFs. And sometimes she was like, hey, this one's Gen Z. It's all kind of gaming and I was like, yeah, okay, do it. And she's like, this one's impact and its environment. So yeah, do it. Just put the money away. It's like, it's more important that you invest in things that you think might matter and you just get it invested and start learning what works, what doesn't work, learn for yourself. So I don't even consult her on what she invests in. She says to me, what should I do this month? I was like, I still want to push her towards, VTI, S&P 500, but I'm letting her kind of learn her own lessons because those are the really valuable ones. But that's how it all came about. And I already had the kind of structure of the book there because I'd been doing some work with migrant workers and I'd been trying to simplify it for them. And then working with my daughter made me simplify it even further.
Yeah, thank you so much. Now, you said something when you were discussing now about how it is important that we didn't have all this financial education or learning about money throughout primary, high school, and college. But then we're in the world now, and then it's like in the middle of the ocean. That you wrote this book to help people take a step at a time, understand money, and realize that financial freedom is possible. Now, in your book, you put together an acronym, mission, which I feel this is the step-by-step that you laid out in this book. Please, can you tell us about the mission acronym and how this can help people to develop the right mindset, the right habit to eventually find it easy to be on the path to financial freedom?
Yeah, I think what you mentioned there, path, is a very important word because mission obviously means the thing we are aiming towards. It's a goal. It's this is our ambition we want to achieve. So that's the word. Mission, the 7 letters stand for money, income, saving, spending, investing, owning, and now. And now, obviously, the most important one. We have to start now. We can't start later. We can't delay this. But I start with money because I think so often, because we're not taught the basics of finance in school, we tend to come in at finance from lots and lots and lots of different angles. I don't know if you have the experience, if you're walking in the countryside, and it depends where you are in the world. I know paths in the countryside are very different everywhere in the world, but many paths are just there because people walk on them. All right, you walk across the countryside, and a lot of people have walked that way. You can see that path if you're on the path. If you're not on the path and you try and come in from the side, you can't see it. It just looks like some other ground, but you can see other people's footsteps if you're following the path. And that to me is why we had to start right at the very beginning. What is money? Because if you don't start there, people think that money is success, or they think it is the ability to impress people, or they think it is keeping score, or they think it is all kinds of different things. Money is none of these things. Money is just a tool. It is literally just a tool that helps us. One, it helps us transact. We can exchange time and energy with someone else, right? Someone else uses their time and energy to do something better than me. I do something better than someone else. We can exchange that time, that energy, and we can both benefit as a result. But more than that, and that's where we get into the book, is it's also a store of that energy. So we can keep that energy. And that's really, really vital, right? Because we might need that energy later. I think if we look at we all have parents, obviously, as our parents get older, we want them to not to have to work so hard. We see them, they have less energy than we do. So I'm already in my 50s. I already have less energy than I used to. We need that energy stored up for later. And that understanding that that's what money is, that's the tool it is so important that people don't get into that. And that's why I start with that basics. And then after that, it really follows very simply. It's like the next step is income. Okay, that's what money is, but you got to get it into your life. Very, very simple. There's no other way of getting money, and you've got to get some income. The next step is saving that money. We've got to keep some for ourselves. All right, that's the most fundamental point. You earn, you keep some for yourself. I think Robert Kiyosaki of Rich Dad Poor Dad said it beautifully, right? So pay yourself first. And that was just like, you just got to keep some money in. Then we deal with spending rather. We have a saying in the book, spending always comes before saving. Saving always comes before spending. See, I am a bit flustered, rushing. But we need to focus on how we spend accurately. And that's where a lot of our attention can go. But as long as we're saving first, it's really just about becoming more effective. And then there's the big chapter, investing. And investing is really how we take the money we've saved and we turn it into more money. And that's really the magic happens. And that's where the pseudonym came from. My daughter, we're discussing compounding. We're discussing the fact that a small amount of money can become a big amount of money. And she asked me, what's the smallest amount of money I need to save to become a millionaire? And I didn't know the answer. I Googled it. The answer wasn't there. It wasn't a very convincing one. So I just put it on the spreadsheet, and it was $7. And I was shocked. I thought $7, that's way less money than I thought you would need to save every day to become a millionaire. But then you put it on the chart and you just see it's one of those classic charts. It just doesn't grow and then it does this. And you end up with that huge compounding. And so that's why the investment chapter is so vital to explain that. O is for owning, which is the next step on the path, because investing, people confuse investing and speculating and gambling. And as you were saying earlier on, that's why they fall into scams. But investing is the process towards ownership. You want to own assets. This is what will change your life. Wherever you are in the world, you need assets that will bring in cash to you and grow. And then, as I already said, the last chapter is now. That's the only time we can start. We've got to start now, because there's no other time. It's just the present. But equally, the compounding starts now. You don't want to wait 10 years for your compounding to start. It will have a huge impact on your numbers in 30, 40 years' time if you wait 10 years. You're on mute.
I'm going to open the floor for our community to ask questions now. But before I do that, I want to ask you one question.
Yeah.
Compounding, the eighth wonder of the world, it can help us it can help our saving and investing to store value and appreciate and grow astronomically in the future. future. How can we develop a mindset that helps us to wait and allow our investing to compound? The reason why I'm asking this is you said people can't differentiate speculating, which is gambling, from investing. Why is it so hard for people to allow their investment to compound? And what can those who struggle with that do today?
Yeah, it's a very good question. And it's one of the things one of the things I talk to people about is that finance is 98% psychology. It's 1% numeracy, and then another 1% not really caring that things add up. The numeracy is really very, very unimportant. The psychology is everything. And that's where it's people like you. And that's why I keep my name off of things, because people might look at me and say, you're a fund manager, you're British, your attitude will be different from mine. And it's true. We need examples like ourselves. A really good friend of mine, he's a skateboarder. And he shows me this guy in the US who's a skateboarder who talks about money. And he talks to skateboarders about how they're going to need money when they're older, because they're only going to make money skateboarding when they're young. And we all need those kinds of examples. To me, the biggest thing is to actually understand, we all need to understand that there are certain processes, there are certain stages towards the saving and investing. The first stage is an emergency fund. If you haven't got an emergency fund and something goes wrong, you're in big trouble. That's the first stage that we save for. Then we build an investment fund onto that. And the investment fund that builds onto that, so it may take us a year or two to build a good emergency fund. After that, it'll take a couple more years to actually turn that emergency fund into an emergency fund plus an investment fund. With that, then we can start to build towards other assets, but they'll still be small. But to me, I think that's one stage, is understanding that we need solid foundations before we build on things. But the second thing is also to look into that distance. Once you realize that this whole thing about $7 becoming a millionaire isn't some numbers I've made up. That's literally $7, 7% returns. And it turns into $1 million because of the speed with which compounding takes effect. We can look out long-term and we can see amazing numbers. I was going to say almost guaranteed. I don't like the word guarantee and I'll never use it, but it's that likely. We just play the safe game and it turns into big numbers. If you play a lottery, yeah, it's guaranteed. It's guaranteed you will lose, right? This is all of the gambling side of thing is stacked against you to lose. But if you build a steady base and you build the emergency fund and you build a foundation, then you can see that turning into freedom much, much faster. I also think the other way to do this is not about chasing the big numbers. To me, the people that inspire me in personal finance are the people who really pull back on their spending. And, there's these guys I speak to in the US. One that's called Joe Olson. He's a teacher. He's a teacher in the US. He retired after working for 8 years as a teacher, right? He just saved enough money. And he had the most simple idea. His idea was, I'm at college. Am I having a bad time? I said, no, I have a great time when I'm at college. So do I need to spend more than I spend when I'm at college? No, I don't. So now I'm working and I'm earning money. I'm going to spend exactly what I spent when I was in college, which meant he only spent 25% of his income. He saved 75%. That means every year he works, he saves 3 years of income. That meant after 8 years, he had 24 years of income. He'd invested it. It had turned into like 25, 30 times his income. He could stop working. That money was going to generate money, and he never needed to work again. If you want to do it fast, if you can't wait the kind of 30, 40 years for the compounding to really kick in, then the key is to really, really pull back on your spending. It's impossible for some people. I don't doubt that. But we all know people that spend less than us, right? I mean, I know people that spend less than me. You know people that spend less than you. We all know people that spend less than us. We could pull back our numbers if we wanted to. And that's the key, is if you want that freedom, That's the other answer. You pull back on the spending. What it isn't is taking big risks on the investment.
All right. Thank you so much. You're just throwing it. You're just throwing it. It's almost as if we should keep you here forever. Thank you so much for your nuggets. And I'm just going to do a refresh for this room while if Chubi has any question he can ask. The refresh is we've been speaking to Michael Gilmore, the $7 millionaire, who wrote The Happy Ever After. Financial freedom is not a fairy tale. I mean, you need that conviction that it's possible. And you can only build that conviction on a well-laid out process that has been shared with you. If you don't believe and trust the process, you will be impatient. You will want it fast, you will want it now, and you can lose it all. We have examples of people who have built it slowly. And one magical thing about compounding is you build it slowly for like 3 or 4 years. In the 5th year, going to the 10th year, then it begins to double. Like I always told myself that this is like going to my 2nd year of building mine, and it's as if it's slow and it's as if it's difficult, but I believe the process. I'm convinced the process works.
Yeah.
So in the 5th year and the 10th year, when it starts to explode, it's possible people will think I'm fortunate or I'm lucky. But I just simply follow simple processes like the one you've shared. So if there's anyone here who has been listening, if you have questions, please type in your question in the question box.
Yeah, Jesse, there's one on the Q&A.
Okay.
So yeah,
Go ahead
anonymous.
and ask it.
Yeah, so he says, or they say, I'm a 28-year-old and I want to become financially free by 30. What kind of investments should I make, as I currently have about $5,000 in my portfolio?
Okay, so yeah, I can get into that very quickly if you like. The financial freedom is in most places in the world, and it changes country by country, depending on the return rates in the country and how you invest. But essentially, we talk about needing 25 times your annual spending. Yeah, so you said you have $5,000 in an account. Now, unless your annual spending is $200 a year, that's not enough. So you're going to need more money there. The key is getting to that number, which is 25. So let's say you can live on $1,000 a year. You need 25,000. If you can live on $10,000 a year, you need 250,000. And the reason we use those numbers is because the big global indexes around the world, the S&P 500 in particular, but the safest investments that we've seen, they generally return 8 to 9% over a long period of time, like 10 or 20 or 30 years. So if you've got most of your investments in there, they will be making 7 to 8%. That means you can take out 4%, right? So 4 is a 1 over 25, right? 4%. So you can take out that 4%. You'll be making 7 or 8%. So you leave 3 or 4 behind. So your investment goes up that amount, which covers you for inflation. And then you can keep taking 4% out, 4% out, 4% out. I love the fact you've got the book in front of you, Jesse, because you see the picture in there of John D. Rockefeller, right? I had a meeting in New York with people that work for his foundation, and they explained that his foundation had been paying out 4% of its total base every year for more than 100 years. That's how well this works. If you just keep investing steadily, you can take it out. But to answer the person's question, that's what they need to aim for. Now, so they can answer it in 2 ways. And the reality is, the faster you save, obviously, the faster the sum will build up. But there's another little beautiful piece of magic in it. The faster you save, the less you're spending. Therefore, the smaller total you need to be 25 times your spending. So let's say if today you're spending $10,000 a year, and you're thinking, I need to save 250,000. This is going to take me forever. If you can pull back that spending to 5,000 a year, you'll be saving an extra 5,000 and you only need 125,000. So you've halved the total amount you need to save. I think also it depends. I don't know the Nigerian market, so I'm going to kind of keep quiet about the Nigerian market. It's why I don't write about any markets in the book, because I want the book to be used by people everywhere in the world on the basics. But I think there's also things like investing in property, which sometimes have very, very high yields in some markets that are very appealing. But if you work around the 4% rule, that is generally held most of the world, that will be the amount you need.
Yeah, thank you. And the person would ask the question is asking for 2 years. He has $5,000 and he wants to retire in 2 years.
Yeah, he has to not spend any money at all. I don't know if you know anything about Zen Buddhism, but there is a saying that the Buddha supposedly said to someone once, "What's the most important thing in your religion and your philosophy?" And he said, "Nothing whatsoever should be clung to." And what he was saying by that was actually the phrase nirvana, which is infinite happiness. You can actually explain with maths, because happiness is what you get divided by what you want, right? If you want a lot and you don't get very much, you won't be very happy, small number. If you don't want very much at all and you get a lot, you'll be really, really happy. So it's a numerical equation. Now, the only way that your guy can do this is by wanting nearly nothing. If he wants nearly nothing, then he can get there very quickly and he'll naturally save towards it. But that's really, if the thing he wants most is financial freedom, then maybe he can copy my friend Joe Olson in the US and just go, you know what, I'm not going to spend anything. I'm going to save and save and save until I've got 25 times the minimum number I can spend, right? The minimum I can live on. When I've got 25 times that, then I'm safe. But there is no investment that will achieve it for him. That's the wrong way around.
Except the person wants to be scammed.
Yeah.
Or speculate or gamble the money, which is very, very risky. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
We are quickly running out of time. It's 4 minutes. Yeah, it's okay. It's 4 minutes to the top of the hour. I'm going to ask this final question and then we can wrap it up. But before I ask this question, so we've been speaking with Michael Gilmore. This is his book, Happy Ever After: Financial Freedom is Not a Fairy Tale. Do you want to tell them where to get the book?
Yeah, it's in, I don't know where you can get it in Nigeria. I think we had that conversation before, right? But you can get it in Amazon, any Amazon online store. If that's sent to Nigeria, then you can get it on there. That's the easiest place to get it.
Yeah, or they can also get it on their Kindle as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Kindle
Apple. Then they don't have to pay the postage, much easier.
All right. Thank you so much. And it's an incredible book, no doubt. We are reading it in our community and we are enjoying it. So now this final question. In Nigeria, school fees is in addition to other expenses. School fees in addition to other expenses do not allow our money to have enough to save. You keep spending. My question is, I don't want to wait for 30 or 40 years to be free. What else can I do to be financially free in the next 10 years?
Well, I mean, it really does come through saving, I'm afraid. And, you know, the answer does come down to either earn more, spend less, because those are the only gaps you have, right? We have to generate that gap. Investing will not be the answer because, as you said earlier on, Jesse, anyone that promises that is trying to scam you. I would say the other thing that comes around for people, and I know that, so depends who you are in the world. Americans use this term, they use the term geo-arbitrage. And geo-arbitrage is you move somewhere cheaper. You take the money you've got and you move somewhere cheaper. Everyone else in the world calls those people economic migrants. You know, when we move around the world, we're migrants and we move to either place where we earn more or we can spend less. And there are places in the world that are either cheaper or we can avoid things. I'll give you a very, very good example. A guy I know very well who was living in Singapore near me, has 5 kids. has a very well-paid job, but he moved back to America so his kids could go to state school because he couldn't afford to put 5 kids through school. Right? It was crazy expensive. So a lot of those decisions can be made when we think about, okay, what are the costs? Can I avoid those costs somewhere else? If I can't, how can I minimize every other cost I have so that I can save? And I'm sorry if it does seem a long time, 30 or 40 years. 10 years would be nice, but 10 years does mean that you need to save about 75% of your income. So either you're making more money, you have to go out and make more money. The danger with making more money before you start saving, though, is that what we tend to do is the moment we make more money, we spend more money. You have to set that goal of starting to save already before you start making more. Then you'll save all that extra. And that's where the real power comes in.
Thank you so much, Michael. You've been able to slice and dice everything for us. And I'm sure even if we have all the day, learning about money, managing our emotion towards money, and ensuring that we have a sound financial attitude is an ongoing journey. It never ends. So it is with this that we encourage you, our community, to begin now. Don't wait till you start earning a lot of money. Develop the habit, develop the attitude. It will surprise you how much you would have moved in 3 months, in 6 months, in 1 year. And it's a progressive development. But if you don't start now, you will look back and tell yourself, oh, I wish I started 6 months ago. I wish I started 2 years ago. Now I'm 45. Now I'm 40. Now I'm 50. Can I still start? Well, I'm 41 and I started about 18 months ago. So it's never too late. Then again, feel free to join our community on Telegram. We've shared the link in the community. You can check us on Twitter, Rise Academy. We can share you the link. In our community, we are always educating and enlightening people. And most importantly, Riseverse, we have an app that makes it very easy for Nigerians to invest in a currency that is not exposed to as a double-digit inflation like Nigeria. So you can invest in US dollar, in fixed income, in real estate, and in stock market. Do well to get the app. And most importantly, start now. Michael, do you have any parting words?
I think you said it perfectly. I think the starting now is even if you start small, even if you think you can't save, what you can do is you can track your spending and you can then look at your spending and think, is there anything there I think I could have saved? And then next month, save that. But if you start today, there is no tomorrow. Tomorrow never exists. So I think you said it perfectly, Jesse. Start today, start small and start today and build the habit. And thank you so much for your understanding. I mean, I was horrifically late and I really do.
It's okay. We really appreciate that you came, and who knows, maybe you will be inviting Chubi and I to speak to a community in Singapore sometimes in the future.
Hey, wouldn't that be cool?
Yeah, we're very delighted that you allowed us to invite you and that you spoke to our community, and thank you so much. And we'll see you on the other side.
Yeah, thanks.
Bye.